Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, if I were to ask you right now what web browser you use, you'd probably have a very quick answer. But what if I told you that choice, that seemingly trivial decision, used to be a powerful declaration of your principles for the internet?
It really did. It defined whether you supported an open, decentralized web or one controlled by, well, major corporations. And today, that original battle feels almost settled.
Yeah, it does. The digital ecosystem is just overwhelmingly dominated by a few giants, isn't it?
Absolutely. Windows, Apple, Google. They set the landscape.
And sitting quietly in the corner is Firefox. Let's be candid here. Many of us who remember the browser wars, we sort of view Firefox as that reliable but maybe slightly dusty relic of the past.
The old workhorse.
Exactly. The digital dinosaur that maybe couldn't quite keep up with the speed and flash of its rivals back then.
Right. And that dinosaur image, that's exactly the myth we need to break today. It's based on this perception, maybe data, that's, gosh, nearly a decade old.
What the nonprofit Mozilla Foundation has quietly achieved is, well, a total re-engineering. It's not the same browser.
So our mission in this deep dive is really threefold for you, the listener. First, we need to completely demystify this prejudice, this idea that Firefox is slow or somehow obsolete.
Yeah, tackle that head on. Second, we're going to illustrate the actual tangible features that make it, frankly, a superior alternative. Not just different, but ethically and technically ahead of the curve in many ways.
And finally, the third point, we want to inspire you with some solid, evidence-based arguments for why supporting Firefox is actually crucial for maintaining a healthy, open internet.
Because this isn't just about rendering speed anymore. It's a much bigger fight for things like digital sovereignty and, importantly, user ethics.
Okay, so let's start there then, the engine. Because to change that narrative, that perception of being slow, Mozilla had to do more than just, tweak its old code, which was called Gecko, right?
That's right, Gecko. They essentially decided to chuck the whole thing out, basically, and rebuild the core architecture from scratch. A huge move.
Wow, that sounds like a massive undertaking, especially for a nonprofit organization competing against these, trillion-dollar companies.
It was enormous. They called this huge engineering effort Project Quantum.
Project Quantum. Okay, so what did they specifically build that gives them this performance edge now? What's the secret sauce?
Well, they built a brand new rendering engine called Stylo. And this is the technical key, really, that changes everything. Previously, browsers generally relied on, let's say, single-threaded processing.
Right, one thing at a time.
Kind of like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Silo, however, was designed specifically to capitalize on the multiple cores of your modern CPU, your computer's brain, in a way that even competitors using Google's Blink engine, well, they can't fully match it.
So instead of lining up tasks one by one, like you said, Firefox is now running them in parallel across those different cores.
Precisely. It allows for genuinely parallel processing of web pages, making things much faster and smoother.
And is there proof? Like, how do we know this isn't just marketing speak?
Oh, absolutely. The proof is right there in the benchmarks. We've seen independent tests. Spometer 2.0 is a big one, confirming that modern Firefox is fully at parity with, and actually often surpasses, Chrome in raw rendering speed and response time.
So that old drag feeling, the lag.
It's completely history. The dinosaur has, you could say, become a digital cheetah. It's fast.
Okay. So if the speed myth is busted, if it's just as fast, maybe even faster sometimes, then where does the real superiority lie? Why should the average user, bother switching from what they're comfortable with?
Yeah, good question. And that leads us straight into the philosophy, the core mission. If corporate-backed browsers, whose business model is often, let's face it, surveillance and advertising.
Like Chrome and Google's ad business.
Exactly. If they're building the roads, then Firefox is like the default wall designed specifically to protect the traveler. Yeah, we're talking about privacy by design.
And what's fascinating here, reading the source materials, is that this robust protection isn't buried 5 menus deep somewhere in the settings.
No, not at all. It's activated immediately upon installation. That's the Enhanced Tracking Protection, or ETP. It's on from the moment you start it up.
ETP, so what does that actually block?
Well, ETP works automatically, blocking standard cookies, yes, but also much more insidious practices like cryptocurrency miners running in the background, and these scripts used for fingerprinting.
We'll get to fingerprinting, but the key is this security is a core feature, not some optional add-on you have to find and enable.
Exactly. It's fundamental to what Firefox is.
And we aren't just talking about blocking a few annoying banner ads here, are we? What's the scale of this defense we're looking at?
The scale is honestly immense. Mozilla reports that ETP prevents over 10 billion trackers from collecting user data every single day.
10 billion daily.
Daily. That number alone should really tell you the true volume of surveillance that's just happening constantly beneath the surface of the web as you browse.
Wow. Okay. 10 billion attempts stopped daily. That's staggering. But I do want to talk about fingerprinting because that feels, I don't know, particularly sneaky. For the listener who hasn't encountered this, what exactly is fingerprinting and how does Firefox stop it?
Right. Fingerprinting is, well, it's when trackers identify your unique device based on a combination of highly specific data that isn't cookies. Things like your hardware specifications, the fonts you have installed, your specific browser settings, even tiny differences in how your graphics card renders certain images.
So it creates a unique sort of signature for my device.
Precisely. A digital fingerprint. So even if you clear your cookies meticulously, they can still often know exactly who you are based on this fingerprint.
That's quite chilling. So how does Firefox fight that?
Well, Firefox combats this with a really brilliant form of, let's call it proactive defense. It deliberately sabotages the tracker's attempts to gather that specific data.
Sabotages how?
Instead of providing your unique signature, Firefox returns generic, common information. It basically makes your browser look identical to millions of other Firefox users.
Ah, so you become functionally invisible in the digital sea rather than just blocking a connection.
Exactly. It's about blending in, making you indistinct. It's a critical distinction in approach.
Okay, that's a powerful privacy feature. Now, moving from defense to innovation, let's look at how this ethical, user-first approach influences modern tech, specifically something like AI. The source material highlights Mozilla's commitment to using AI in a, well, transparent and responsible manner.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting area. Their commitment shines through in features that offer intelligent functionality without the kind of opaque algorithmic control we often see elsewhere.
Like where? What's an example?
Well, take Firefox suggests their intelligent address bar feature.
Okay, it provides suggestions when I start typing, just like other browsers do. What's the difference in philosophy here?
The key difference is control. It remains entirely with you, the user. You can choose to see suggestions based purely on your local history stuff that never leaves your machine.
Okay.
Any sponsored suggestions, if you opt into seeing those, are always clearly labeled as sponsored. It doesn't use some hidden manipulative algorithm to decide what you should see next, trying to nudge you. It's a transparent tool that you actively manage.
Right, so the goal sounds more like augmentation, helping you find what you want, rather than subjugation, telling you what you should want.
That's a great way to put it. Another example is the integrated local translation feature.
Ah, yes, translation. How does that work differently?
Firefox uses highly accurate AI models to translate entire web pages. But crucially, it often performs this whole process locally, right inside the browser itself.
Meaning it avoids reliance on external cloud-based services like Google Translate.
Exactly. So if you're translating, say, a sensitive document or an email, the actual text doesn't have to be sent off to a third-party server somewhere. It stays on your machine, preserving your data privacy.
That's a significant privacy advantage.
It really is. And look, this isn't just marketing fluff. Mozilla actively backs this philosophy with action. They're investing millions in funds specifically dedicated to trustworthy AI startups, and they're actively advocating for ethical AI regulation. They're trying to shape the future of AI responsibly, not just exploit it.
Okay, so if we connect this back to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the goal seems to be about giving the user tools to reassert control over their digital lives.
Yes.
And this brings us neatly to what the sources call the ecosystem of control. Firefox is clearly more than just a fast window to the internet. It's a suite of features giving you, well, absolute power, as one source put it, over your browsing sessions.
And the feature that most exemplifies that absolute power is probably multi-account containers.
Right. Containers. I know many listeners have probably heard of these, but they can sound a bit abstract or maybe complicated. Can you break down the practical application? What do they actually do for me?
Sure. Simply put, containers allow you to isolate browsing sessions into different color-coded compartments, all within the same browser window. So you might have a work container, maybe colored blue, for your corporate email and Slack.
Okay.
Then a personal container, maybe green, for your social media, news sites, hobbies. And perhaps a shopping container, maybe purple, specifically for e-commerce sites like Amazon or eBay.
I've always been slightly wary of mixing, say, my work logins and my personal browsing in the same browser window. How foolproof is the isolation between these containers?
It's highly effective. The key takeaway, the absolute core benefit, is that sites loaded in one container cannot track the user's activity in the other containers.
Really? So Facebook in my personal container can't see what I'm searching for on Amazon in my shopping container.
Exactly. Nor can your work tools track your personal social media consumption if they're in separate containers. It's a brutal, incredibly powerful tool against cross-site surveillance. It essentially gives you several segregated browsers neatly packaged within one single application.
That is immense. That alone feels like a major reason to consider it. Beyond containers, what other practical tools do they offer in this ecosystem to protect my daily data, my email perhaps?
Yeah, they offer Firefox Relay. This directly tackles the problem of constant email spam and data breaches linked to your primary email.
How does Relay work?
Instead of handing over your real email address to every new service, newsletter, or online store, Relay generates disposable email aliases, like temporary email addresses.
Ah, okay.
These aliases forward messages directly to your real inbox, but the website or service never gets your actual address.
So if an alias starts getting bombed with spam, or worse, it shows up in a data breach list, which seems to happen almost every week these days,
Right.
I can just delete that specific alias without compromising my main real email address.
Exactly that. It puts a firewall between your real identity and the services you sign up for. And paired nicely with that is Firefox Monitor.
Monitor, what does that do?
Instead of you having to manually go and check services like "Have I been pound" all the time, Monitor automatically checks if your registered email address has been found in known public data breaches.
And it tells me.
And it immediately alerts you if it finds a match, explaining which breach it was and what data might have been exposed. These are practical, daily, proactive defenses built right into the Firefox ecosystem.
Okay, so let's pull this all together now as we move towards conclusions. We've established, I think pretty clearly, that the speed myth is obsolete. Firefox is fast, stable, memory efficient.
Check. Myth busted.
We've seen that privacy by design isn't just a slogan, it's Firefox's core essence, with things like ETP and fingerprinting resistance on by default.
Yes, protection from the surveillance economy is its reason for being, not an optional extra.
And the third massive strength, which we touched on, is its independence. Using Firefox means something more.
It absolutely does. By using Firefox, you are, in a real sense, voting for competition. You are supporting the only major browser that isn't controlled by a massive corporation whose primary business model relies on tracking you and selling your attention, turning you into the product.
So it's a vote for a more diverse, competitive web ecosystem.
Precisely. It helps keep the web from becoming a total monoculture.
But let's be realistic. The road ahead for this digital cheetah, as you called it, is steep. There are significant ongoing challenges. The biggest threat it faces right now seems to be what we call the Chromium hegemony.
This is critical, yeah. The engine Chromium, originally developed by Google, now powers not just Chrome, but also Microsoft Edge, Brave, Opera, Vivaldi, and many others.
So almost everyone is using the same underlying technology.
Pretty much. And this widespread use is creating a de facto monopoly. What happens is web developers, often pressed for time, tend to develop and test their sites primarily, sometimes only, for Chrome and Chromium-based browsers.
Which forces Mozilla's team.
It forces Mozilla's team into this constant, exhausting battle for web compatibility. They have to ensure sites built only for Chrome still work correctly in Firefox. This risks letting Chromium dictate web standards purely through market dominance, potentially stifling true innovation that doesn't fit the Chromium model.
That sounds like a huge drain on resources, and the numbers don't exactly help either, do they? While Firefox has a loyal, dedicated user base, its global market share is, well, pretty low.
Yeah, it hovers around, 3 to 4% globally. That's small. And a low market share limits resources, obviously, but also limits their influence on crucial web standard bodies.
So the core challenge is just convincing the average user, the person who's comfortable, to actually make the switch.
That's the crux of it. Getting beyond the tech-savvy crowd to the mainstream user.
And that leads directly to the final challenge, migration friction.
Right. Users are often deeply embedded in these tightly synchronized ecosystems. Think Google accounts, syncing passwords, bookmarks, history, extensions seamlessly across devices.
Yeah, it's very convenient.
It is convenient. And even though Firefox actually has excellent import tools now to bring all that stuff over quite easily,
The perception is that it's hard.
the perception is that migration is difficult or too much hassle. It stops people from even trying. They feel like the effort, even if small, outweighs the perceived gain, especially if they don't fully grasp the privacy implications of their current setup.
So here's where it gets really interesting then. The challenge isn't purely technical. It's not just about market share numbers. It's fundamentally cultural, isn't it?
I think so. It's about remembering or maybe learning for the first time that the original vision of an open, user-centric web was a truly revolutionary concept. And it's an idea that is genuinely worth fighting for, even now. Every click you make, every time you consciously choose an independent browser like Firefox, one that genuinely places user interests above advertising interests, you are casting a small, perhaps, but vital vote for that original open cause. You're giving a little nudge back against the giants.
That's a powerful thought to end on. So if you, listening right now, walked away from Firefox maybe 5 or more years ago because it felt sluggish or outdated,
Which it might have back then.
we really hope this deep dive has maybe convinced you to reconnect, to download the new, genuinely faster version, give it a real shot, maybe install those containers we talked about.
Yeah, try it for a week. See what it feels like. Experience maybe the tranquility of browsing without constantly feeling like you're being watched, packaged, and sold.
Take back a little bit of that control.
Exactly. Use a tool that's actually designed just for you, the user, not primarily for someone trying to track you across the internet.
Well, until the next connection, make informed choices about the technology that shapes so much of your life. We'll see you soon for the next deep dive.